Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story, hedge fund giant Bridgewater is unloading $1.5 billion in Chinese stocks, stepping away from Chinese investments entirely for the first time. President Trump is moving to strengthen America's drug supply, but just how dependent is the U.S. on China, and what would happen if Beijing cut off the flow? As President Trump meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, Governor Mike Dunleavy is weighing in on why the state matters strategically and why the Arctic is becoming so critical as Russia and China grow closer.
Alaska is your Fort North America, and we're in a dangerous neighborhood.
And empty factories, quiet retail floors. China's economy is slowing. Now some luxury hotels are taking their kitchens to the streets, ditching fancy bouquets for fried rice to keep their businesses running. Bridgewater Associates, one of the world's largest hedge funds, just sold nearly $1.5 billion worth of Chinese stocks, marking the first time the company's fully stepped away from Chinese investments. In total, Bridgewater sold shares in about 16 Chinese companies. Over the past few months, Bridgewater sold off millions of shares in big names like Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba, JD.com, and search engine Baidu. Between April to June, the value of these stocks plummeted as a result. At the same time, Bridgewater bought shares in U.S. tech giants like Nvidia, Google's parent Alphabet, and Microsoft. This marks a major shift for Bridgewater's founder, Ray Dalio. Dalio has been a longtime key investor in China's economy. Back in 2020, he told Fox Business in his own words that he likes investing in China and knows it's controversial, but he said that's an opportunity. However, last month he sold his remaining stake in the fund's China holdings, marking the first time he's fully stepped away from Chinese investments. The move comes amid trade tensions between the U.S. and China. Earlier this week, the two countries agreed to extend their tariff truce for another 3 months. The truce started in mid-May after President Trump raised tariffs on Chinese imports to about 145% in April, and China retaliated. That escalation rattled global markets at the time, sending both U.S. and Chinese stocks sharply lower. Bridgewater's latest moves signal a risk-off approach, aiming to protect itself from potential losses as uncertainty grows. President Trump is taking aim at U.S. reliance on China for medicine. He has ordered the government to start stockpiling medicine in a strategic reserve. And today's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more.
President Trump this week signed an executive order to refill the strategic reserves for pharmaceuticals. The order helps reduce America's dependence on other countries, even adversaries like China, for life-saving medicine. According to the White House, 2 out of 5 finished prescription drugs are made in the U.S., and 1 in 10 active pharmaceutical ingredients are made here in the U.S., with a significant portion sourced in China.
The United States depends on China for 95% of the key components that are necessary to make our generic drugs. And if China shut the door on exports within months, our healthcare system would begin to collapse. That's how dependent we are. And it's not just us. The world is dependent. Europe is dependent.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said in a recent congressional testimony that China has significant leverage over pharmaceuticals and that it would be disastrous if they stopped sending them to the U.S.
A large part of our pharma does come from the PRC. That actually gives them negotiating leverage. I think it would be a tragic mistake if they were ever to flip off that switch, but it's always there. They could. They flipped off other switches.
Trump's order also encourages more domestic production of these ingredients. He's also working to revive domestic pharmaceutical production with tariffs.
And we'll be announcing something very soon on pharmaceuticals. We're going to give people about a year and a half to come in, and after that they're going to be tariffed if they have to bring the pharmaceuticals into the country, the drugs and other things into the country. They're going to be tariffed at a very, very high rate, like 200%.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says that such tariffs will stop the U.S. from relying so heavily on China.
We can't be relying on China for fundamental things that we need. Our medicines and our semiconductors need to be built in America.
The strategic reserve will stockpile active pharmaceutical ingredients rather than the finished drug products, as they often have a stronger shelf life. The program was created under Trump's first term, but Trump criticized the Biden administration for leaving the reserve nearly empty. The U.S. has other strategic reserves, too, in case of a national emergency, stockpiling things like oil, food, and critical minerals. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
President Trump is meeting with Russian President Putin in Alaska on Friday to talk about a peace deal, but the state itself has broader strategic importance as Russia and China grow closer. NTD's Steve Land spoke with Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy about why the Arctic matters strategically in the face of this growing Russia-China alliance.
Governor Dunleavy, you recently wrote an op-ed on how Russia and China are trying to seize control of the Arctic. Tell us about that and what's really at stake in the Arctic.
Well, you see more activity all the time. You see more joint activity between the Russians and the Chinese. Just a few years ago, the Chinese started to come up to the Bering Strait. We're about two and a half miles, Alaska is, from Russian territory. Little Diomede is American, it's an island. Big Diomede is Russian, and that's where your Bering Strait is. We've seen more activity with the Chinese. We've seen more joint activity with the Chinese and the Russians. And of course, we are under a North Korean missile umbrella here in Alaska as well. So we are the fort in a dangerous neighborhood, and always have been for some time. Our state came into existence in 1959 during the height of the Cold War. We are fortunate. We have a very robust military presence here in Alaska. F-22s, F-35s, largest Coast Guard presence in the United States, missile defense interceptors, communication bases, as well as a robust Army base at Fort Wainwright that can deploy troops pretty rapidly throughout the world, especially here in the Pacific. And so,
yeah, you mentioned coming into existence in 1959. That came a deal between the United States and Russia, for some might say, based on Alaska's natural resources and rich environment there, that you guys, at least America, got the better end of that deal. As of 2024, Russia does operate 32 military bases in the region. China, despite having no Arctic territory, operates 5 icebreakers. How would you say President Trump's recent executive order to restore America's maritime dominance and strengthen our stance in the region has impacted relations? And how do we prevent their plan from succeeding?
Well, President Trump is trying to fix so many longstanding problems in a very short period of time, and he's actually pretty successful. So in the big, beautiful bill, for example, there was a considerable amount of funding allocated to building icebreakers, really for Alaska. We've only have 2 icebreakers in the fleet, and those 2 are old, not really working. And so with the big, beautiful bill passed, we get earmarked several icebreakers, large icebreakers for Alaska, several smaller icebreakers and ice-resistant ships as well. This is a good start. Should have happened a long time ago, but I'm glad that President Trump got this process going. Alaska is the Arctic state for the United States. I mean, Alaska has more coastline than the rest of the lower 48 put together. So it's long overdue, makes sense, and it will complement the military assets that we have up here already. But I look forward to, I'm sure it's going to happen sooner than later when the president starts to have discussions in earnest with Canada and others that ply the Arctic, so that we can take a look at our defense, we can look at our policies up here, and really begin to develop long-term policies, which I think will happen under President Trump, to secure the Arctic even more, and not just military-wise, but in terms of any economic development up here in the Arctic. America's got to be at the forefront, and thanks to the president, that's where we're headed.
And we saw the strategic interest that the president had in Greenland. So, of course, Alaska, obviously a key place for us moving forward. Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy, really appreciate your insights, and thank you for joining us.
From toys and textiles to electric vehicles, more Chinese companies are moving production to other Asian countries like Indonesia, a way to protect their businesses from U.S. tariff hikes. Here's more on that.
Indonesia faces a 19% U.S. reciprocal tariff, whereas China faces a 30% U.S. tariff during the trade truce, and the final result is actually uncertain. Investment from China and Hong Kong into Indonesia rose by 6.5% year to year during the first 6 months this year. Indonesia's West Java province has become one of the most favorable places for Chinese companies to set up their facilities. The province not only has a deep sea port, but also an industrial park.
China's economy is showing weakness across the board, from consumer spending to factory output and investment. As Chinese consumers tighten their belts, luxury hotels are finding creative ways to stay afloat, even setting up street stalls selling freshly cooked gourmet dishes. Here's a closer look.
As Chinese consumers tighten their belts, luxury hotels across the country are finding new ways to stay afloat. Typically known for their gourmet restaurants and lavish banquet halls, hotels like the Baiyuan Grand in Beijing are making up for falling revenue indoors by hawking their food on the streets outside. The move has delighted residents like Mrs. Ma, who can now sample Baiyuan's signature crispy roast pigeon at a discount.
Their place is quite well known. I heard about it from my neighbors, so I came. It seemed quite popular. I came almost every day, except for one. I think it's a good idea and makes it very convenient for us residents.
Since opening in late July, Baiyuan's sales director says that the stall has sold about 130 pigeons a day, compared to about 80 before. She said that while that's better than the average caterer, it's still not enough to fully offset the fall in business indoors, where private dining room use has fallen from full to about 1/3 in the past few months, and the check average per head is down nearly 50%. Baiyuan is among at least 15 high-end hotels nationwide hawking food outside in recent weeks, according to their social media and Chinese news sites. Analysts say the hotel hawkers are another sign that deflationary pressures risk becoming entrenched in the world's second-largest economy, whose growth leans more on manufacturing and exports than on consumers. Consumer prices were flat year-on-year in July. Analysts also cite 40-cent breakfasts and supermarkets offering flash sales as deflationary signs. The change in strategy by high-end hotels might be a visible symptom of broader economic strains.
Imagine paying to go to work every day, except you're really not working, just pretending. Some young people in China are doing exactly that. That's happening as the country's youth unemployment rate tops 14%. Let's take a closer look.
Young people are willing to pay more than $4 a day to avoid feeling useless at home while looking for a job. China's slow economy is causing the high youth unemployment rates, so this unexpected industry has grown up in China's major cities, providing fake office spaces for fake jobs. Youth are paying to go to a functional office where they can use the computers to look for jobs or try to start their own companies. Some people say they do it in an attempt to discipline themselves, and some students use it to satisfy a graduation rule that they must have a work contract or internship to receive a diploma.
It sounds like a scene straight out of Crazy Rich Asians. A luxury car crash in Sydney has thrust a mysterious young woman into the spotlight, sparking a social media frenzy in China. Many are asking, who is she and where does her wealth come from? Under a social media storm, the woman appeared in court Friday remotely with her face fully covered. NTD's Flora Hua brings us the latest.
Hundreds gathered at the Sydney court Friday, hoping to catch a glimpse of young Lan Lan, but she appeared only briefly via video link, her face hidden by a hat and mask. At the hearing, Young's lawyer told the court official that she is currently unable to enter a plea and needs 6 weeks to prepare her statements. He also requested an exemption for her from appearing in person at the next hearing. The court approved both requests. Young's case has left the public and media buzzing with questions mounting about her identity. A few weeks ago, Young slammed her $1 million Rolls-Royce into a Mercedes van driven by an Australian celebrity's personal driver. CCTV footage showed the Rolls veering into oncoming traffic before the crash. Officers on scene said Yang refused a roadside breath test, a standard check for possible drunk driving. The Mercedes driver was seriously injured. Yang walked away unharmed. She is now facing charges including causing bodily harm by dangerous driving and refusing a roadside breath test. The Daily Mail reported Yang owns not one but two Rolls-Royce and lives in a luxury penthouse in Sydney's east. And here's what's raising eyebrows. This supposed Gen Z millionaire has zero online footprint. No business records, no LinkedIn profile, no selfies or family photos on social media. Nothing publicly reveals the source of her fortune. The crash made headlines in Chinese language news and quickly went viral online. Some internet users began linking Yang to families of high-ranking Chinese Communist Party officials, claims that can't be verified. It wouldn't be the first time relatives of powerful CCP leaders moved overseas, often stashing huge sums of money abroad. Australia is one of their preferred destinations. Many of those funds are believed to come from corrupt activities. Flora Hua, NTD News.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For On the Clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you soon.